I ask myself all the time, what can you teach in street photography? And I think that we can basically, more than teach, I think we can inspire people to see the world with their own eyes, something like this. And by showing your trajectory and how you started and how you develop your style by studying and by trying different things, I think I can actually inspire people more than teaching how to see or how to compose.
Ja, herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Gate 7 Podcast-Folge oder besser gesagt zu einer alten, denn ich mache gerade eine kleine Kreativpause. Gate 7 macht Urlaub. Naja, ganz so ist es auch nicht. Genau das Gegenteil eigentlich ist der Fall, denn was Anfang des Jahres hervorragend funktioniert hat, mache ich jetzt wieder. Kurzer Rückblick: Im Februar 2023 war ich gemeinsam mit Thomas Jones, mit dem ich ja gemeinsam auch Abenteuer-Reportage-Fotografie mache, einen Monat lang auf Kuba, genauer gesagt in Havanna. Ähnlich wie die Zeit bei Pia Parolin an der Côte d'Azur im Sommer 2022, wo Thomas und ich unter anderem intensiv am Feinschliff des Manuskripts für unser mittlerweile im D-Punkt Verlag erschienenen Buch mit Bildern Geschichten erzählen gearbeitet haben, haben wir auf den Straßen Havannas jede Menge Reportagen fotografiert und Street Photography gemacht. Davon haben wir schon ausführlich berichtet. Wir sind mit vielen Geschichten und Bildern zurückgekommen, die in den vergangenen Wochen und Monaten in Webinare, in Podcasts, in Videos und was weiß ich noch alles eingeflossen sind. Schau und hör da gerne nochmal rein. Speziell auch auf dem YouTube-Kanal von Thomas Jones findest du zahlreiche Videos. Ja, diesmal ist Thomas leider zu Hause geblieben und ich habe mich alleine aufgemacht nach Kuba. Ich werde dort einen Monat in Havanna verbringen, wieder die Angel auswerfen und schauen, was ich rund um den Malecón alles für Motive und Geschichten finde. Ein kreatives Retreat in Kubas Hauptstadt. Ich bin schon sehr gespannt auf die Begegnung und die Bilder. Und Kuba ist für vieles bekannt, aber nicht für sein rasend schnelles Internet. Deshalb habe ich sicherheitshalber schon mal ein paar Folgen aus dem Archiv geholt, damit du in der Zeit, in der ich unterwegs bin, nicht ganz auf Inhalte hier im Gate 7 Podcast verzichten musst. Und wie gesagt, ich werde natürlich nicht faul in der Sonne liegen und Cuba Libre trinken, sondern auch fleißig fotografieren, das verspreche ich dir. Und dann gibt es hinterher wieder bestimmt viele neue spannende Geschichten. Und wer weiß, vielleicht gibt es ja irgendwann auch mal eine Fotoreise nach Kuba. Auf jeden Fall kannst du mich anschreiben, wenn du vorhast, nach Kuba zu reisen. Ich gebe dir gerne meine Kontakte zu lokalen Guides weiter, die dir sicherlich dabei helfen können, noch mehr hinter die Kulissen in Kubas Hauptstadt zu schauen. Aber bevor wir den großen Sprung wagen und vielleicht irgendwann doch mal mit einer Fotoreise nach Kuba aufbrechen, geht es 2024 erstmal wieder ins europäische Ausland. Neben unserem Street Photography Workshop in Hamburg direkt vor der Photopia, genauer gesagt am 9. Oktober 2024, geht es 2024 auch wieder nach Helsinki und Lissabon. Aus Lissabon bin ich praktisch gerade erst zurückgekehrt. Anfang November hat da zum ersten Mal ein Workshop von uns stattgefunden. Der Workshop war schnell ausgebucht und wir hatten perfekte Bedingungen und jede Menge Spaß. War eine tolle Gruppe und ich freue mich jetzt schon, das Ganze im kommenden Jahr zu wiederholen. Aber auch Helsinki solltest du nicht unterschätzen. Da lohnt es sich auf jeden Fall auch mal vorbeizuschauen. Ich habe selbst längere Zeit in Finnland gelebt und freue mich immer wieder dorthin zurückzukehren, speziell nach Helsinki. Für mich ist das eine wunderbare Stadt, direkt am Meer gelegen, beziehungsweise am Wasser und mit einer ganz besonderen Atmosphäre, vor allem im Sommer, wenn der Workshop stattfindet, Ende Juli. Ja, und ich freue mich einfach, die Stadt zu entdecken, gemeinsam mit dir. Ja, Helsinki ist auf jeden Fall eine Stadt, die viel Charme und viel Flair besitzt und auf jeden Fall es wert ist, entdeckt zu werden. Ja, und wenn das für dich interessant klingt, dann schau gerne auch in den Shownotes. Da findest du nochmal die klickbaren Links mit weiteren Informationen zu unseren Workshops und das Ganze kannst du auch direkt machen, wenn du möchtest, auf der Webseite unter www.abenteuer-reportagefotografie.de. Abenteuer-Reportage-Fotografie ist ja das Projekt, das die Inhalte von Gate 7 sozusagen in die Praxis umsetzt. Ein Projekt, das ich gemeinsam mit Thomas Jones mache und in dem all das, was ich mit meinen Gästen hier im Podcast bespreche, in die Praxis umgesetzt wird. Und zwar in verschiedenen Formen, in verschiedenen Formaten wie Webinare, Podcast, Workshops, alles sehr interaktiv und dabei hat sich mittlerweile auch eine sehr aktive Community gebildet, wo wir mittlerweile über 100 Teilnehmerinnen und Teilnehmer sind. Wir tauschen uns gegenseitig aus, alles rund um das Thema Street Photography, Reportage und visuelles Storytelling. Wenn du Lust hast, dann schau gerne dort auch mal vorbei. Den Link findest du in den Shownotes, in deiner Podcast-App oder wie gesagt direkt auf der Webseite abenteuer-reportagefotografie.de. Ja, und wie gesagt, an dieser Stelle ist, glaube ich, für mich der richtige Zeitpunkt gekommen, nach einem turbulenten Jahr mit vielen Vorträgen, mit vielen Workshops, mit vielen Aktionen rund um Gate 7 und Abenteuer-Reportagefotografie mal durchzuschnaufen, eine Pause einzulegen, um dann wieder richtig Schwung aufzunehmen. Ja, und vielleicht ist es ja auch für dich eine gute Gelegenheit, dich nochmal etwas intensiver mit den bisherigen Inhalten auf Gate 7 in Ruhe auseinanderzusetzen und dich dann auf die neuen Interviews zu freuen, die in den kommenden Wochen und Monaten sicherlich kommen werden. Zum einen natürlich das, was ich auf Kuba erlebe. Zudem muss ich auch noch aufarbeiten, was ich fotografisch in Kolumbien vor mittlerweile über einem Jahr gemacht habe, sowie zuletzt auf den Reisen in Helsinki und Lissabon. Da ist noch einiges im Archiv. Dann kommt Kuba noch hinzu und Mitte Januar geht es dann auch wieder in meine zweite Heimat nach Argentinien. Also eine ganze Menge, die da auf dem Zettel steht. Ja, und wenn du zufällig Anfang 2024 auch in Buenos Aires bist und Lust auf eine individuelle Fototour hast, dann melde dich gerne bei mir. Ab Januar gibt es dann natürlich auch wieder hier frische Folgen. Damit aber in der Zwischenzeit hier auf dem Kanal keine Funkstille herrscht, bin ich mal tief ins Archiv gestiegen und habe ein paar Folgen herausgesucht, die aus dem ein oder anderen Grund es wert sind, noch einmal ausgestrahlt zu werden. Ja, und außerdem sind die Hörerzahlen in den vergangenen Monaten nochmal deutlich gestiegen. In Kürze knackt Gate 7 dann auch die 1 Million Marke, was die Downloads angeht. Darüber freue ich mich natürlich sehr. Vielen Dank natürlich an dieser Stelle auch an dich da draußen, die oder der du regelmäßig Gate 7 hörst. Das freut mich. Ja, und danke natürlich auch an alle, die Gate 7 erst kürzlich entdeckt und abonniert haben. Und wenn du auch dazu gehörst, dann bist du eingestiegen, als es schon über 350 Folgen gab. Und wahrscheinlich bist du noch nicht dazu gekommen, alle Archivfolgen zu hören. Insofern ist diese Folge dann bestimmt auch neu für dich. Diesmal ist es Gustavo Minas, ein Streetfotograf, der für mich aktuell zu den weltweit spannendsten und besten Vertretern in diesem Genre gehört. Gustavo kommt aus Brasilien. Ja, ein Interview, was mich stark inspiriert hat und ich denke, es ist auf jeden Fall wert, es noch einmal hier auszustrahlen. Ich wünsche dir viel Spaß, wenn du das Interview heute zum ersten Mal hörst, aber auch, wenn du es schon einmal gehört hast, dann ist jetzt mit etwas Abstand bestimmt immer noch etwas Neues, was du entdeckst und wahrnimmst, was du beim ersten Mal so nicht bemerkt hast. Auf jeden Fall lohnt es sich, hier nochmal reinzuhören. Viel Spaß mit Gustavo Minas. Ja, bevor es losgeht, noch eine ganz kurze Bitte an dieser Stelle. Ich würde mich unheimlich freuen, wenn du genau das machen würdest, was ich getan habe, nämlich einmal ganz tief ins Archiv zu gehen und zu schauen, welche Folgen du vielleicht noch nicht gehört hast und deine Lieblingsfolge heraussuchst und sie auf Social Media, Facebook oder Instagram teilst. Mit deinen Freunden, mit deinen Bekannten, die sich auch für Fotografie und Storytelling interessieren. Das würde mir sehr viel bedeuten und auch helfen, diesen Podcast noch ein bisschen bekannter zu machen. Ich habe in den letzten Wochen und Monaten, wie gesagt, einen deutlichen Hörerzuwachs feststellen können, über den ich mich sehr, sehr freue. Und auch wenn du mir da ein bisschen helfen möchtest, unterstützen möchtest für die Arbeit, die ich hier mache, um noch mehr Menschen zu erreichen, die sich für visuelles Storytelling interessieren, dann wäre ich dir sehr dankbar, wenn du ein bisschen Werbung und ein bisschen die Trommel für Gate 7 rührst. So, jetzt aber wirklich direkt hinein in die Wiederholung des Interviews mit Gustavo Minas. Viel Spaß! Dieses Interview haben wir wieder im Rahmen von Abenteuer-Reportage-Fotografie aufgenommen. Da hast du ja die Möglichkeit, noch näher an den Podcast und die Gäste heranzurücken. Du bist bei den Aufnahmen der Interviews live via Zoom mit dabei und kannst den Gästen im Anschluss dann deine Fragen stellen. Wenn das für dich interessant ist, dann schau gerne mal vorbei, abenteuer-reportagefotografie.de. So, jetzt aber direkt hinein in das Interview mit Gustavo Minas. Viel Spaß! Olá e bem-vindo, Gustavo. É prazer falar com você.
Obrigado. Thank you, Kai. Danke for the invitation.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Gustavo. I came across your work last year when I was at the photo festival in Baden, and I met Lois Lammerhuber there, who published your book, Maximum Shadow, Minimal Light. And ever since then, I've been a huge fan. I follow you on Instagram. And looking through this book, it's a collection of beautiful images. And everybody who knows street photography a little bit and has been out on the street knows that it's a body of work, or it's a kind of pictures you don't take from day one on as a street photographer. It takes a lot of time to develop the vision, to develop this style, to get there. And this is also what I'm very interested to know from my guests, their evolution from when they started to where they are right now as a photographer. I was watching your course on Domestika, and there you talked about a pivotal point when you were kind of frustrated with your own photography, with your results. Maybe we can start at that point. Take us back to that point and explain a little bit how you felt. I think it was around 2007.
In 2007 was when I first bought a digital camera. I had studied journalism in university, so I knew the basics of, shutter speed and ISO, etc. But during the university, we had no idea of, photographic language. We just studied some Cartier-Bresson and some Kappa, which are, big names in photojournalism. And that was that. So when I first bought my digital camera, I think I was a bit lost, but super excited at the same time with all the possibilities of digital. I could do now long exposures and I could experiment a lot. And then that's what I did. But these pictures were not taking me anywhere. I traveled to South America for a couple of months and I came back, and of course I liked 2 or 3 pictures, but, and these were Flickr times, and okay, I had some feedback, but I was blind, I guess. And then in 2009, I decided to enroll in a year-long course with Carlos Moreira. For those who don't know him, he's a kind of Brazilian Cartier-Bresson. He's a guy who photographed São Paulo and Santos in the seaside since the 60s. So he was a proper master, and he was in his late 70s when I took the course. And this totally changed my life, because in the first half of the course, we studied all the black and white masters, Bresson, Kertész, Lee Friedlander, Auger, Robert Frank, and, all these big names. And they, of course, I liked their pictures, but then, I don't know, they just looked a bit dated for me, because it wasn't something that I could replicate or in my daily life, because So in the second half of the course, we started to study the color masters, Harry Gruyer, Alex Webb, Picasso, Eggleston. And then, I don't know, I just felt that they were a bit more, or much more contemporary, and their pictures just looked more like with the things that I was seeing on the streets of São Paulo, especially Harry Gruyer, because he had worked a lot in Morocco. And, that kind of light that he uses just reminded of the light that we had here in Brazil. So basically, Gruyer really blew my mind, and was one of the first photo books that I bought. And I would remember just checking his book. It was just a photo post book, which is very small. And then after that, I bought Lumière Blanche, which is one of his first books. But then I remember leafing through his books like a lot, and then I think he really got into my mind, and I just decided that okay, that's something that I want to do. I want to work with light and with color. But then the thing is that I was working as a journalist in São Paulo, so I didn't have all day to do this. So I just had, and I couldn't do this in the late afternoons, which for me is when things get really interesting. So I could just do these early mornings before I go to work. And that's what I decided to do. I just started waking up very early in the morning, like 6 a.m., 6:30. That's what I still do nowadays. And, I just started walking around São Paulo, and basically I was guided by light. I didn't know where I was going, but if I saw some light on the corner, I would just turn that corner. And then, if the next light would take me there, to the left or to the right. And then that São Paulo was a new city for me as well. So this was a way of discovering the city. And so light was my first passion, photography. And of course, after some years, I discovered the power of reflections, especially when I moved to Brasilia and started working at the bus station here, which has a lot of buses and snack bars. And so they just, I don't know. And then, and of course, after Guerrilla, I just started, I guess, incorporating more influences into my work and studying other photographers. And I think I'm a mix of all of them, of the photographers that I like, of movie makers that I like, with all my surroundings and my background. And I think that's it. I don't think there's a secret formula to find your own style. I think you have to photograph a lot. And I was very, my first pictures, my first 3-4 years were really, really bad. But then I think I'm very dedicated. And after some time, I started getting some keepers. And that's it.
Yeah, a lot of hard work and a steady evolution to start simple and then get more complex. You said that first you started to follow the light. There's a beautiful sentence in the book, in the preface to the book. There you say, "Wandering with an empty mind taught me how to see." So that means you went out on the streets with no preconceived idea of what you wanted to photograph.
Exactly. Yeah, I was very, I don't know, I was working as a journalist in a daily newspaper, so I wasn't after, big facts or protests or manifestations or things like that. I was trying to escape from journalism, actually. So I was looking more for poetry, for lyric moments, for things that were beautiful, that caught me attention in any way. So light was the thing that attracted me most, and then colors, of course. And and one of the beautiful things about street photography for me is that if you go out with looking for something, you tend to see just that thing that you're looking for. But if you're not looking for anything specific, your mind is more open, then you end up seeing things that you weren't expecting, and then expected things in the end of the day that are the most special for me.
Yeah. The pictures, they emerge then, and over a period of time, you assemble a body of work, and maybe then, with some time, some common theme, some thread turns up. I heard you also talk about that sometimes you look back after a while at your pictures, and then you realize that there's something that connects these pictures, and out of these single images emerges an essay or a project. Can you elaborate a little bit on that idea?
Yeah, I'm very bad at formulating or thinking beforehand about a project. Oh, I'm going to do a project about this thing. So my way of working is basically walking and taking pictures. And after some months or after some years, I just look back at my archives and I think, oh, maybe I have something here. Maybe I have 10 strong pictures. And this was the case with my first project, which is about my hometown. It's a very small town in the countryside of Brazil. And I would photograph there. I wasn't living there anymore, but I would photograph there when I went to see my parents. And this is a very, specific region of the city, which is in the borders between the city and the rural zone. So it has a lot of personality. All the walls are colorful and people are very characteristic. So after a couple of years, I just look back at this and I think, oh, I think I have something going on here, and this could be an idea for a project. And I think this was around 2012. So I just decided to take a chance in one of those street photography contests. It was called London Street Photography Contest or a festival, something like that. I think it doesn't exist anymore. And then I just sent these pictures which were made in my hometown, and I was the runner-up of the contest. So, of course, this got me very excited because it was just a beginner. And then I had lived in London for some time in 2005-06, working as a waiter. just for a gap year after university. So I went back to London and saw my pictures exhibited there. So it was and with the bus station was the same thing. Bus station is my best known project, And I moved to Brasilia in 2014. My wife was living, my then girlfriend was living here, and I passed the test to be a civil servant for the government, to work as a journalist here. And then I came from São Paulo to Brasilia, and I was very disappointed with the city because the city is very strange, a bit like it was built to be the government center. So it's a bit lifeless and dull. And then I decided to go to the satellite cities, which are the cities in the surroundings of Brasilia where people who work here live. And by doing this, I was always passing by the bus station almost every day. And I was just doing 3 or 4, just some pictures there before taking a bus. And then after some time, I looked back at these pictures and I thought, oh, maybe my project or this project's not about the satellite city, it's just about the bus station. And yeah, that's how this project came about. And this really opened up doors for me. This is the project that Lois Lamberhuber got to know before inviting me to do the book. And so, yeah, I think we, as street photographers, we tend to work a lot with individual photos, with single photos. That's my way of working too. But then when you have like a team, which kind of it's a bit related to documentary photography, it's easier for you to circulate your work, to show your work around, and to apply for grants and stuff like that. So with the bus station, this was the case.
Yeah, and it can also be the focus on a specific area to photograph. You said that you took lots of pictures in your hometown, and then at the bus station. So 2 very specific areas that you went to over and over again. How important is that in your mind to concentrate on a specific area, or instead of just walking around randomly and going to new places every day?
I think for me this is key. For example, because of course I like to travel to different exotic places, to Cuba, to New York, to see different things, and I love doing this kind of thing. But of course I think that my deeper work really emerges when I'm photographing the same place over and over. For example, the bus station project is now a zine, and I had some exhibitions, but I still keep coming back because it's probably the only place in Brasilia where I can get people enough to do, a very busy picture with lots of layers and stuff like that. And what happened with the bus station, for example, is that when I started photographing there, my pictures were very descriptive. I was just trying to show what the place looked like. And, they were very formal. I was just describing the activities, and just, they weren't sophisticated at all. They were just, these were my first impressions. And then because I had to go back there almost every day, I just, I got bored with my own pictures. So I just started developing new ways of seeing the place, and new ways of photographing it. And this is specific. And the reflections were the thing that I found to represent the place in a more complex way, I think. Because one day I was getting to the bus station, and I tried to photograph this bus driver leaving the station with the bus. And when I tried to photograph him, when I got home, I realized that reflected on the glass of the bus, I could see a lot of passengers who were in the upper platform of the bus station. And this just gave me an eureka thing, something like this. I realized that I could show not only what was in front of me, but also what was in my back and around me. And I just realized that this maybe would be a better way of representing the reality, because, we're seeing what's in front of us, but we are also hearing noises and smelling things. And, it's a more complete way of representing reality for me. That's why I got so obsessed with shooting reflections, because I could, just show a 360 degrees view of a scene sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, so slowly developing this style that is typical for you now, the use of light, harsh shadows and reflections and very complex layered compositions. Gustavo, I prepared a presentation so we can look at some of your pictures from the book, and maybe it's also easier to talk about it then if we have something that you already just mentioned from the buses. So I share my screen and hopefully this works. So this is the book Maximum Shadow, Minimal Light. It was published in Edition Lammerhuber, a publishing house in Austria. Gustavo, how was that when you were approached by Lois and he proposed to make a book?
I couldn't believe it at first because, nowadays everyone is paying a lot of money to make their books, and something that was a dream for me to have a book published, but it was something that I was planning to do in 10 years when I would gather some money, sell a car to do it. And then Lois wrote me, I want to publish a book with your pictures. And I was, wow, is this real? And I was really suspicious in the beginning. And then we were talking, and then I finally bought the tickets to go to Austria. And then I started, no, now this is going to happen. And then in 2007, I went to Baden, where the publisher is. And then I just took 900 pictures with me. And then I sat along with Lois, and we started looking. We first looked at all 900 pictures, and we started by giving them 1 star. And then in second round, we 2 stars, and then 3 stars and 4 stars, until we got to 95 images with 5 stars. And then, okay, that's the selection. And yeah, I was very excited, and then, but most of decisions were taken by Lois, I have to say, because okay.
He has a lot of experience.
You probably know him, so you know what he's like. But yeah, of course, I like what he did, because we had many different pictures, but at the same time we have many things that repeat themselves, the reflections things and the colors so his idea for editing the book was that we should not repeat these things, So one picture is trying to break the expectation in relation to, if we have a very busy picture here, the next one will be a bit calmer. And if you have a reflection, the other one can be a reflection picture. So we're always trying to break this expectation, and because it's a very long book, I have never seen it like in just one time. I cannot sit and see 95 pictures. And so yeah,
it turned out great. It's a book that you take up over and over again, and you always find something new when you look at the pictures. So beautifully done. The title, Maximum Shadow, Minimal Light, where does that come from?
It comes from a line from a poem by Brazilian poet Paulo Leminski, and he had this poem which he said that the final lines of the poem say exactly this: that the maximum shadow sometimes comes from the minimal light. And that's something that I had written down since 2011, 12. That's something that stayed in my mind, and I tried. Many years ago, I had tried to make a project about this. Just I gave this name to a short project, but I never showed it to anyone. I just kept it to myself. And then when Lois asked me for suggestions for a name, this was the first thing that I wrote down to show him. And when I showed him these lines, this was my first idea, something like this. And then, okay, that's it. And he didn't even want to see the other ideas. So it was very quick.
Yeah. Yeah, very suitable title.
Yeah.
So let's look at some of the images inside the book, and maybe you can comment a little bit on the pictures, explain what we see,
sure.
And then also explain a little bit of your technique behind capturing these images.
Okay, this is at the bus station. This was 2015, the year that I got totally obsessed with reflections. And I kind of, this one is a lot of, for me, it tells me a lot about how reflections work, because I still have the contact sheet for this picture, and when I do a workshop, I like to show these to students, because I started by just photographing this guy who was taking his breakfast here, and then I realized that when people passed behind me, this silhouette would be seen on the right side. So I like this relationship between the guy inside the cafe and the silhouette behind me. For example, here, this guy who's walking here is, in my back. And then suddenly his wife or this woman just came back I think she was getting some coffee, and then she came back. But then at first I couldn't see her face because, my background was brighter than her. So suddenly this guy passed behind us, and then when this guy passed behind us, he just made this area darker, and then that's why we can see her face properly. Because if this guy hadn't passed, and this lasted just a millisecond, it was very quick, and luckily I pressed the shutter. So this kind of relationship between what's inside and what's outside, and these things that come and disappear very quickly, this got me really obsessed with reflections. And yeah, that's one of my luckiest ones, I think. And I think I had much quicker reflections back then, because nowadays I struggle to get, a proper one with everything working.
Yeah, amazing pictures, this inside look into a cafe, and then incorporating the reflections and taking the outside in as well in this composition. And I liked how you explained it, that you first were drawn by this man, and all the other elements later fell into place and added up, and it got more and more complex, and slowly you realized what potential there still is in the images, what kind of possibilities might show up depending on from what directions people walk into the frame. And it's a great shot.
Yeah, Alex Webb says something interesting about it. He says that you have to smell the possibility, and I think this is the case here. Just I felt that something could happen, but I wasn't sure at all about all this thing. The woman coming back, and then the silhouette behind me. I just had this, this time. I just could smell some possibility, but I could never figure out beforehand what could happen, and that's what's so exciting for me about street photography.
Yeah. It's this is a question I also had for you. I mean, there's a million things that you can point your camera at. You also started with travel photography, with macro photography, portrait photography, all the different genres, but you stuck with street photography. What is it about urban life that is so exciting to you?
Well, I think, maybe the fact that I come from a very small town where nothing happened, in which I was a bored teenager. And then when I moved first to London, then to São Paulo, then to the place where I went to do university, I just, I'm this small town guy who got very excited about seeing crowds of people, and so this is one thing that attracts me a lot. And I don't know, I like watching people, and I like how people relate to the urban spaces. And yeah, for me, I really love that Vinogran quote that says that life is a theater that he doesn't have to pay the ticket for, something like this. And I really see life in big cities like this, like at a city that I don't have to pay tickets for. I just go around and watch. And I don't know, I if it's sunny outside, I really cannot stay home. I don't feel at rest at home, even if I'm tired. So I feel pressure to go out and see things, because I'm always feeling that I'm missing something in the world if I'm staying home for too long. So yeah, I think basically that's it. And of course, the possibility of making nice images is interesting. And I really love when the sun sets and I can finally stop for a beer and, just rest. And, it's a way of making my life a bit less boring, because I still work 7-8 hours a day as a journalist. And so I need to do something just to please myself at the end of the day, even if for just a couple of hours.
To counterbalance, and even if you come home with not a keeper, it's always great to practice, go for a walk, take in some fresh air, and just observe life on the streets.
Yeah, otherwise I would just be going from home to work home, and I need this break.
in this image, you stood very close to your characters here. You stood just right by the window. And how do you deal with that, with this proximity to your subjects, and go unnoticed, or so that they don't react in a way that disturbs the composition?
Yeah, that's one of the advantages of working with reflections, because at first people, okay, what's this guy doing here? But then after some time, I think they don't believe that I'm taking their pictures because I'm so close, especially in this case here. Unfortunately, this cafe doesn't exist anymore in this way, so I cannot do this pictures like these at the bus station. But then, I don't know, I don't try to be invisible, because I don't believe in this. If I'm raising the camera to my face, I don't think that people won't notice me. Now and then I try to, just keep the camera in front of my belly and just lifting the LCD screen to do, a more stolen picture. But now I'm okay with being noticed. And after some time, people, tend to forget about me most of the cases. In many cases, it's just, okay, this guy is taking pictures there. Let's just leave him be. But then, yeah, of course, we have mediums, and you have many different reactions and many different situations, and each one is totally different. Sometimes I want to work a scene, and then if I see someone that's disturbed by me, I just come and say, okay, I'm doing street photography, and I try to explain what I'm doing. So this person who has to be there, he'll be comfortable with me. And so there are many different strategies that I use that I'm totally, I think I developed them over the years. Yeah.
There's a great video on YouTube that you filmed with German street photographer Samuel in Hamburg. Yeah. And I will link to that, and there you can see how you work and what's your style, and that you don't it's just exactly what you said, that you don't try to go unnoticed, that you are very direct and very you are there with your camera taking the pictures, and it's very, very interesting to watch it. Yeah,
Germany actually is very difficult to do this. So I didn't have any big problems in Germany, but people would always come to me, oh, now it's illegal to take pictures in public spaces. And so, I struggled a bit in Hamburg, and then in Berlin I had 2 or 3 people coming to me and speaking in German, but of course I couldn't understand. But I know it's tricky for you guys there.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look at another picture. It's a more subtle composition, also harsh shadows, light involved here. Can you talk a little bit about this image of this businessman?
Yeah, again, it's one of the cases in which I could never foresee what was going to happen. I just followed this guy for, 5-10 steps, because I was actually trying to wait until someone would come from the shadows and to be in the light here. But then this guy came from behind me, and okay, this guy's a great character. And I was ready to take a picture of someone coming from the left. And then suddenly this guy just stretched his hand to greet someone, and because of course the contrast was so intense, we could not see the guy coming from the left. And but I could never, if I could direct people, I could never think about something like this. So that's one of the great things about street photography too. And I love how this guy looks timeless. He looks like he's from the 60s. Such a good character, and we don't see many of these people like him in Brazil.
Exactly. Totally timeless. And this clean composition, this man reaching out with his hand into the void, and you don't see, or you have so many questions in your head, or this picture raises questions. I think this is, the secret of a good street photo, that it leaves, questions, and it doesn't answer everything. So you look again and again, and start wondering what this situation is like, and what came next. Great picture. So
this is at the bus station again, and I really like this one because we have some formulas in street photography, and this is one of them. We see this fetch of light and this very this very punctual light, and then we tend to work until any random person passes in front of the light, and then, okay, we have a picture. But in this case, I think this kind of picture, to be successful, you have to have a great character, someone that speaks to you, and then makes the picture not only a graphic situation, but it takes it to another level. And when I got home and then I saw this woman's face, for me, she was very representative of the people at the bus station. They're working all day, and then they're coming home in the end of the afternoon, and she looks so tired and a bit sweaty. So she was, for me, a symbol of many different people who I see every day at the bus station. So for me, this is not just a graphic situation. It's also, of course, the composition for me works very nicely with all these people here on top, and the blue against the orange, but then it's a lot about her expression and how, the drama that she brings to the picture.
Yeah. Beautiful situation in itself, but with the right character, that's just the special thing that makes it an outstanding image. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. And this is one of the pictures you took in your hometown, right?
Yeah.
From the project.
Exactly. So in my hometown, in this neighborhood that I like to work, we have basically 3 or 4 streets with this. All houses are very similar to each other. And then the sun sets with no tall buildings. So we have this great light, and all these situations, and with lots of light and shadows, because of course the houses on the right are casting shadows to the left. So we always have this beautiful contrast, and people tend to paint their houses with different vibrant colors. So it's easy to photograph there, and it's all about trying to find the right characters and to photograph them under the great light. And it's not very difficult to do this, because you have these characters coming into the light, and we have some silhouettes, and of course this car adds a lot, and I really like all this shine here. This is one of my favorites of the series. And yeah, and I don't know, I like this project a lot, because for me it represents a bit of my childhood, not only my own childhood, because of course I would play on the streets a lot in my own hometown, but then formally, the way that I photograph with all these houses, which look like, a kid's drawing, the little house that we used to draw at school. So for me, it's a lot about my childhood in photography and my own childhood.
Many photographers find it hard to photograph in their own backyard and in their own environment. Did you feel the same in the beginning? Did it take a while to get into the flow to photograph in your hometown?
Yes, especially because I know, of course, it has 18,000 inhabitants. So, and I didn't want to be stopped by people all the time. Oh, Gustavo, how are you doing? Where have you been? I haven't seen you for a while. So I decided that I should not photograph in downtown, where I know most of the people. And that's why I went for this neighborhood, which is more close to the farms, and because I didn't want to be. And of course, even in this neighborhood, people still, oh, who are you? Are you son of? I know your father. I know your grandfather. Many times I have this kind of conversation. But what first attracted me to explore this neighborhood was the fact that I wouldn't be stopped all the time by people that I know. And then, of course, I started to realize how the potential that it had graphically, because of the sun setting, because of the colorful houses and the old cars, and it has a lot of character, and it reminds me of Cuba as well. So yeah, that's it. And then, but I was, I started photographing in my hometown around 2010 and 9, when I was really, really obsessed with photography. And when I went to see my parents, I just, I didn't want to stop photographing just because I was seeing my parents on holiday. So I had to photograph anyway. So that's it. I never felt this block about, being my own backyard.
Yeah. Every photographer has its own way into photography and in growing and developing a personal vision. And there's no recipe for that, how to learn how to see. teach workshops, and there are some online courses where you give away what you've learned so far on the streets. What is it that you think that you can teach in street photography, and what are some aspects that are impossible to teach and that everybody has to find out on their own?
That's a great question, and I ask myself all the time, what can you teach in street photography? And I think that we can basically, more than teach, I think we can inspire people to see the world with their own eyes, something like this. And by showing your trajectory and how you started and how you develop your style by studying and by trying different things, I think I can actually inspire people more than teaching how to see or how to compose. And of course, I talk a lot about composition, and I talk a lot about how I work with light and shadows. And I think these technical aspects can be taught, and how I work with reflections. And I go very deep into it. And I say, okay, now I took a step to the right and I took a step to the left, so I could make this image come together. And I like to give very detailed explanations when I'm doing workshops and in my online courses. But of course, you cannot teach sensitivity or sensibility to the situations that one will find on the street. So this is something that cannot be taught. And I have my own references, my own influences, and each people reacts differently to other photographers or into the reality, I guess. So.
Yeah, watched your first online course about street photography on Domestika. It's greatly done. It's I can really recommend it. It's in Portuguese, but with subtitles in English and in German. So you can also enjoy it if you don't speak Portuguese. And what I also like is you give lots of references. That what you mentioned is just like you can't teach someone to see, but you can give references and point out where to look.
Yeah, I think references are very important because they basically teach you how to react differently in the situations that you find on the street. And I don't think that any photographer is creating something that's totally new or fresh. And probably the importance of showing references is that you just start incorporating these images in the back of your mind. And then when you see a situation, you don't know exactly where you saw it before, but you kind of know how to frame it, or, they just stay in the back of your mind, and you just start mixing them all together, and then you can with something that's more yours, or not totally new, but then it has your own season in your way of season, or of a bit of your way of seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Gustavo, for taking us on your journey to become the photographer that you are today. It was very interesting. And before we end this interview, we have some audience today here in Zoom. And I'd like to ask them if they also have some questions, something I forgot to ask, something they want to know. So this is your chance now to ask Gustavo some questions before he has to go. Ja, und an dieser Stelle ging es dann noch eine ganze Weile weiter mit den Teilnehmerinnen und Teilnehmern von Abenteuer Reportagefotografie, unserem Online-Kurs für visuelles Storytelling. Gustavo hat sich viel Zeit genommen für die Fragen. Wenn auch du mit dabei sein möchtest, dann schau dir das Projekt mal genauer an. Abenteuer-reportagefotografie.de. Mehr von Gustavo gibt es in seinen Online-Kursen auf Domestika. Den Link findest du auch in den Shownotes zu dieser Episode. Vielen Dank fürs Zuhören und bis zum nächsten Mal. Dein Kai.